The lights from Manhattan's skyscrapers sparkled like lost stars, streaming through the glass windows of Ethan Caldwell's 72nd floor penthouse. The 34-year-old white American man, CEO of Apex Innovations, stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his silver cufflinks, his hands slightly trembling though he tried to hide it. His black tuxedo, perfectly tailored, hugged his tall frame, and his blonde hair was neatly styled, but his blue eyes betrayed a deep unease. The annual Apex Gala, gathering investors, CEOs, and the media, was supposed to be Ethan's stage. He had prepared a speech about record-breaking quarterly profits, ready to reinforce his image as a symbol of progress and power. But tonight, his mind wasn't on numbers or flashing cameras. A single name, Amara Johnson, haunted it. Amara. That name echoed in Ethan's head like an old melody, familiar yet distant. 3 years ago, she had been his assistant, a black American woman with a warm smile and piercing eyes. She had always known how to untangle his chaotic schedule, predict when he'd forget his tie, and remain calm even when the office was in crisis. She made long workdays bearable, though he rarely admitted it. Then she vanished, leaving behind a resignation letter and a secret that upended his world. Ethan had tried to bury that memory under million-dollar contracts, powerful handshakes, and lavish parties. But now, she was coming back, not because he wanted her to, but because of a mistake he hadn't foreseen. It all began during a late-night meeting 2 weeks ago. In Apex's sleek conference room, surrounded by whiskey glasses and cigar smoke, Liam Carter, Apex's marketing director and Ethan's best friend, had tossed out an idea that seemed like a joke at the time. "Ever wonder what happened to Amara Johnson?" Liam asked with a half-smirk, eyes glinting with mischief. "Your old assistant, the one who made the whole office turn heads. Why not invite her to the gala? Stir up some drama and make the night less boring." The others in the room had burst into laughter, and Ethan, unwilling to appear weak in front of his colleagues, had shrugged and played along. "Sure, why not?" he said, feigning confidence. He grabbed a pen and wrote Amara's name on the guest list, and the room applauded as if they'd just witnessed a performance. At the time, Ethan had thought it was just a silly moment, a joke that would soon be forgotten. He didn't expect his assistant to send the invitation the next morning. Now, standing in his quiet penthouse, Ethan looked down at the guest list on the glass table. Amara Johnson's name sat there, the black ink sharp and damning. But what truly stunned him were the 3 names beneath it: Zuri Johnson, Malik Johnson, and Aisha Johnson. 3 children. Ethan felt his chest tighten. Who added those names? He didn't remember approving them. Did Amara have kids? Or was it just a coincidence? He tried to recall, but memories of her came only in fragments. Her smile in the elevator, how she corrected errors in his presentations, and that final moment when she stood in the office lobby, saying goodbye with a firm voice and sorrowful eyes. Ethan shook his head, trying to dispel the creeping unease. Maybe she won't come. It could be all a misunderstanding. He checked his watch, 6:45 p.m. The gala started at 7 o'clock. Ethan walked to the window, gazing at the sparkling traffic below. Manhattan never slept, but tonight, it felt like the city was watching him, waiting for a mistake. He remembered what Liam had said that morning when he handed him the final guest list. Amara confirmed she was coming, Liam had said, curiosity thinly veiled. "And she's bringing 3 kids. Do you know anything about that?" Ethan had replied with a strained smile. No idea, but he knew. Deep down, he knew those children might not be strangers. 3 years ago, when Amara left, she left behind a wound Ethan had never faced. She hadn't been just an assistant. Between late nights, business trips, and rare moments when Ethan let down his guard, they crossed the professionalism line, touches that lingered. secretive smiles, and a few nights they both knew were wrong, but couldn't resist. When Amara told him she was pregnant, Ethan panicked. He offered financial support, thinking that was what a responsible man would do. But Amara refused. "I don't need money, Ethan," she said. "I need someone who's there." He couldn't do that. Not then, when ambition was devouring him. So she left, carrying their secret. Ethan turned back to the mirror, adjusting his tie one last time. "What have I done?" he murmured, barely audible. He stepped toward the elevator, pressing the button to the lobby. As the doors closed, it felt like he was walking into a courtroom for which he had no defense. If Amara truly came tonight, what would she bring? An accusation? A memory he'd buried? Or worse, a truth he could no longer run from? Across the city, in a modest yet cozy apartment in Brooklyn, Amara Johnson was putting the final touches on her appearance. A deep crimson dress hugged her figure, highlighting her radiant brown skin and strong frame. She was no longer the timid assistant from years past. Over the last 3 years, Amara had rebuilt her life as a freelance consultant, raising her triplets, Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, with the support of her mother and her best friend, Kiara. Tonight, she would step into Ethan's world, not as a ghost from the past, but as a resilient woman, a devoted mother, and a symbol of rebirth. Yet deep inside her, one question still lingered. Would Ethan realize what he had lost? In the dim glow of the elevator descending to the gala lobby, Ethan Caldwell felt a weight pressing on his chest, as if each passing floor peeled back another buried memory. The white American man, with golden hair and piercing blue eyes, typically masked all emotion beneath the hardened shell of a corporate executive. But tonight, as Apex Innovations Gala loomed, he couldn't outrun the name Amara Johnson, or the secret she had carried away 3 years ago. As the elevator doors opened, the sound of violins from the banquet hall spilled in. Still, Ethan's mind had already drifted to another day, the day everything between him and Amara changed forever. 3 years ago, the Apex Innovations office in Midtown Manhattan operated like a relentless machine. Polished glass desks reflected sunlight, phones rang incessantly, and printers hummed steadily. Ethan, then only 31, was a rising star, guiding Apex through million-dollar deals with a confidence bordering on arrogance. Amara Johnson, his assistant, was the quiet soul of the office. The 28-year-old Black American woman, with natural curls and a smile that could dissolve any tension, was always there to keep things in order. She took notes during meetings, corrected errors in Ethan's presentations, and knew precisely when he needed a black coffee, no sugar. But Amara was more than an assistant. In those rare pauses between meetings and flights, she made Ethan feel like he was more than just a machine built for success. Their relationship was never clearly defined. It began with lingering glances in the elevator, light jokes after hours, and late-night work sessions where the line between professional and personal blurred. One time, after a particularly tense meeting, Ethan had reached out and held her hand in the dark conference room, and she hadn't pulled away. Moments like that, a rushed kiss in the corner of the office, a night at a hotel after a business trip, became secrets they both held close. Ethan, consumed by ambition, never thought beyond those moments. With her profound sensitivity, Amara seemed to wait for something more, but never demanded it. On that fateful day, Ethan returned to the office after lunch with investors, leather briefcase in hand, speaking rapidly into his Bluetooth headset. The office was tranquil. The familiar sound of Amara's typing was absent. On his desk lay a white envelope, neatly placed, with his name handwritten, Ethan. He opened it and felt his heart stop. Amara's resignation letter was brief, with no explanation. Ethan, I'm leaving Apex. Thank you for everything. Amara. He read it repeatedly, hoping for an explanation, a reproach, anything. But there was nothing. Panicked, he rushed to the lobby just in time to see Amara standing, coat in hand, about to leave. Amara, what is this? Ethan asked, his voice tinged with anger and confusion. She looked at him, her deep brown eyes steady. I'm resigning, she said, calm but firm. Why? What happened? Ethan stepped forward, trying to stop her. Amara took a deep breath, then spoke, as if each word carried unbearable weight. I'm pregnant, Ethan. 4 months. Triplets. Time froze. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I wasn't going to force anything on you, Amara continued, her voice soft, yet resolute. But you deserve to hear the truth from me, not through rumors. Ethan stood there, frozen, like a man caught in a nightmare. Triplets? He had never imagined becoming a father. He had never prepared for anything outside of deals and stage lights. I'll take care of you, he stammered. Money, doctors, whatever you need. Amara shook her head, a shadow of sorrow in her eyes. You always think everything can be solved with money, Ethan. But I needed a partner, not a sponsor. She turned and left the lobby, leaving Ethan in crushing silence. I'll take care of them, she said over her shoulder. Don't worry. You don't have to do anything. In the following weeks, Ethan tried to fix things, but only in the way he knew how, sending money, contacting doctors, and even offering to hire a lawyer to shield Amara from gossip. But Amara refused everything. On their final phone call, her voice was gentle, but sharp as a blade. You want control, Ethan, but I need presence. If you can't give me that, I'll do it alone. Then she hung up, and Ethan never heard from her again. He threw himself into work, trying to forget Amara and the children he couldn't even bear to imagine. But every night, regret gnawed at him, like an unhealed wound in the cold vastness of his penthouse. Now, standing in the opulent Apex ballroom, Ethan felt the past chasing him. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, and the laughter of investors echoed through the air. But all he could hear was the pounding of his heart. He glanced again at the guest list on his phone. Amara's name, and the 3 children, Zuri, Malik, and Aisha. Each name was a silent indictment. Who were they? Could they be? He didn't dare finish the thought. Liam appeared beside him with a glass of champagne, clapping him on the shoulder. Relax, man. You look like you're about to faint, Liam joked, his grin mischievous. Amara is coming, and she's bringing 3 kids. Are you sure you don't know anything about that? Ethan shook his head, trying to stay composed. No, I don't, he replied, but his voice faltered. He looked toward the entrance, where guests arrived in elegant gowns and perfect smiles. Would Amara truly show up? And if she did, what would she bring? An apology? A confrontation? Or a truth he could no longer escape? Ethan tightened his grip on the wine glass, feeling as if he were standing before a door he didn't dare open. Amara was getting ready somewhere in the city, not for revenge, but to face the man who had once meant everything to her. And when she walked in, she wouldn't just be bringing 3 children. She would be getting an entire world Ethan had left behind. In a small yet cozy apartment in Brooklyn, the light from a desk lamp shone on children's drawings taped to the wall. Houses, suns, and 5 stick figures holding hands. Amara Johnson, a 31-year-old Black American woman, stood before the mirror, deft fingers fastening a pair of tiny silver earrings. The deep crimson dress she had chosen from a vintage shop hugged her figure, setting off her radiant brown skin and strong build. Her natural curls spilled freely, forming a halo around her face. Amara was no longer the timid assistant who once toiled under Ethan Caldwell's pressure at Apex Innovations. In the 3 years since she was reborn, she has been a successful freelance consultant, the devoted mother of triplets Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, and a symbol of resilience. Tonight, she would enter Apex's gala, not to prove anything to Ethan, but to show her children their mother's world, and perhaps to face the past. The apartment buzzed with laughter and delightful chaos. Zuri, the 4-year-old with wide eyes and a sensitive spirit, twirled in a cream-colored princess dress, shouted, "Mom, do I look like a mermaid?" Malik, the inquisitive boy who loved fixing things, struggled to tighten the tiny black bow tie on his tuxedo, muttering, "Will there be superheroes at the gala, Mom?" Aisha, the dreamiest of the three, sat on the sofa holding an old photo of Amara and Ethan from a company event years ago. "Is this man coming, Mom?" she asked, her voice clear but full of curiosity. Amara paused, her heart skipping a beat. She knelt, gently smoothing Aisha's hair. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. But tonight we're going to have fun, okay?" Aisha nodded, her smile bright. For 3 years, Amara had rebuilt life from the ashes of the past. Leaving Apex 4 months pregnant without promises from Ethan, she faced her greatest fear, becoming a single mother to 3 children. Yet she was not alone. Her mother, Grace, a retired nurse, had moved nearby to help with the kids. Kiara, her college best friend, and now an Apex employee, was always there through sleepless nights and days of self-doubt. With their support, Amara learned to balance raising Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, building her consulting career and helping small businesses optimize strategy. She worked from home amid her children's laughter and the smell of Grace's freshly baked cookies. Life was not easy, but it was hers, and she was proud of it. The invitation to Apex's gala, delivered to her mailbox 2 weeks ago, struck like lightning under clear skies. Apex Innovations cordially invites Ms. Amara Johnson and guests, and the card is read in gold lettering on cream paper. Amara had read it dozens of times, unsure whether it was a mistake or a cruel joke. She thought of Ethan, the man who had once made her heart flutter, but had also left a deep wound. She kept their photo not out of nostalgia, but to remind herself of her strength. When she showed the card to Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, they squealed with delight. "Is it a birthday party, Mom?" Malik asked. "I get to wear my princess dress," Zuri shouted. Aisha, eyes on the photo on the shelf, whispered, "I want to meet the man in the picture." Amara smiled, though her chest felt heavy. She decided to go, not for Ethan, but for her children and herself, to prove she was no longer the woman who had left Apex's lobby with silent tears. "Zuri, don't mess up your hair," Amara called as the girl tried to leap onto the sofa. "Malik, here's your bow tie." She tied it for him, laughing as Malik puffed out his chest proudly. Aisha, already in a pale pink silk dress, tugged her mother's hand. "Mom, you look the prettiest ever," she said. Amara kissed her daughter's forehead, warmth spreading through her. She glanced in the mirror one last time and drew a steady breath. The red dress, black heels, and unwavering eyes. She was not only a mother, but a queen ready to enter the arena. "All right, angels, let's go," she said, leading her children to the door. Grace, standing on the threshold, squeezed Amara's hand. "You make me proud," she whispered. Amara nodded, eyes glistening. "Thank you, Mom." A sleek black sedan waited outside. Amara helped Zuri, Malik, and Aisha in, ensuring their dresses and tuxedos stayed neat. The driver, a middle-aged man with a friendly smile, held the door. "Looks like a royal family," he said. Amara gave a small laugh. "We're trying." As the car rolled through Brooklyn's streets, she gazed out the window at city lights sparkling like distant dreams. In the back seat, the children chattered excitedly. "Mom, will there be cake at the gala?" Malik asked. "Will there be dancing?" Zuri interjected. Amara turned, feigning seriousness. "If you're good, I'll find cake and dance with all three of you." The children burst into laughter, and for that moment, her worries melted away. Yet as the car neared Apex's Manhattan headquarters, Amara's heartbeat quickened. She knew Ethan would be there, perhaps wearing the confident smile and sharp eyes that had once captivated her. She wasn't afraid to meet him, but feared what she'd feel when she looked into his eyes. Would she see regret, indifference, or simply a stranger? And her children, Zuri, Malik, Aisha, what would they sense when they stood before the father they knew only from a photograph? Amara tightened her hand, the silver ring on her finger gleaming. She wasn't coming for revenge or supplication. She came to show her children how strong their mother was, perhaps to remind Ethan of what he had missed. The car stopped in front of the Apex building, spotlights casting the entrance like a stage. Amara drew a deep breath, opened the door, and stepped out, leading Zuri, Malik, and Aisha. Through the glass doors, the crowd inside awaited. She smoothed her dress, smiling at her children. "Ready, angels?" Zuri nodded. Malik puffed out his chest, and Aisha gripped her mother's hand tighter. Amara moved forward, not as someone returning, but as a queen claiming her kingdom. The grand lobby of Apex Innovations' Manhattan headquarters gleamed like a crystal palace. Giant chandeliers cast shimmering light that danced across the white marble floor, while the lilting strains of violins mingled with the refined laughter of CEOs, investors, and journalists. Ethan Caldwell, blonde, blue-eyed, the very image of power and confidence, stood near the entrance, shaking hands with a partner from Silicon Valley. His black tuxedo fit like a second skin, yet inside, his heart pounded erratically, haunted by the name Amara Johnson. And the three children, Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, printed on the guest list. He glanced at his watch, 7:30 p.m. The gala was half an hour in, and Amara still hadn't appeared. Part of him hoped she wouldn't come, but another, deeper part ached to see her. Suddenly a hush rippled through the crowd, as if the room's air had been sucked away. Conversations stalled mid-sentence, and champagne flutes froze in midair. Ethan, midway through discussing a renewable energy strategy, sensed the shift. He turned, and his world stopped spinning. Amara Johnson stepped through the glass doors. Her deep crimson gown glittered beneath the lights, highlighting her radiant brown skin and powerful poise. She wasn't merely beautiful. She exuded regal authority, a queen entering her realm. Beside her were three small children, resplendent in gala attire. Zuri in a cream princess dress, Malik in a tiny tuxedo with a black bow tie, and Aisha in a pale pink silk dress, gripping her mother's hand. From executives to reporters, every pair of eyes locked onto the quartet. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. The children's eyes, blue, vivid, unmistakably his, stabbed him with an undeniable truth. He stood motionless, wineglass trembling in his hand. Liam Carter, the marketing director who had sparked the joke invitation, whispered with a mischievous grin, "Well, you sure know how to create drama." Ethan didn't hear him. He saw only Amara, the former assistant he had secretly loved, standing with a confidence he'd never witnessed before. And those children, were they? He dared not finish the question. Sensing the room's gaze, Amara held her head high, a composed yet resolute smile on her lips. She led Zuri, Malik, and Aisha across the lobby, her steps sure on the marble. Zuri, sensitive and keen-eyed, clung to her mother while scanning the surroundings. Malik, puffed with excitement, whispered to Aisha, "Doesn't this look like a castle?" Dreamy and quiet. Aisha watched her mother, and then the crowd, as if searching for something. Entering the main hall, Amara moved beneath a chandelier's glow, appearing almost painted in light. Guests, striving for decorum, could not mask their astonishment. A photographer raised his camera, but one sharp glance from Amara made him lower it. From across the room, Kiara, Amara's best friend and an apex accountant, hurried over, eyes shining with pride. "Amara Johnson!" she cried joyfully. "Girl, you look like a queen." Amara smiled and gave Kiara a quick hug. "Thanks, Kiara. We did our best." Kiara crouched to greet the children. "And these are your angels? Oh my, they're adorable." Zuri curtsied like a princess. Malik offered a grown-up handshake, and Aisha smiled shyly. "I'm Malik, 4.5, he declared, making Kiara laugh. Ethan watched the reunion from afar, feeling severed from his universe. Amara hadn't just returned. She had brought a living, breathing truth he could no longer ignore. The moment didn't last. An elderly investor, Mr. Harrison, pulled Ethan into a talk about stock options. Ethan nodded mechanically, his eyes never leaving Amara. She guided the children to a corner table with juices and petits fours. Zuri pointed at a macaron. "Mom, can I eat this?" Amara nodded, placing one in her daughter's hand, then glanced back, sensing Ethan's stare. Their eyes met across the crowd. Amara's deep brown gaze was no longer the warm look of an assistant. It held resolve, a hint of fatigue, and an unspoken question. "Do you recognize us?" Ethan's chest tightened. He wanted to walk over and say anything, but his feet felt nailed to the floor. Liam, feeling the tension, patted his shoulder. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Ethan didn't answer. He watched Amara bend to whisper to Aisha, her smile gentle yet unbreakable. The children, perhaps their children, circled her like tiny satellites, each with a distinct spark. Zuri's watchful sensitivity, Malik's boundless energy, Aisha's quiet wonder. Nearby executives began to murmur. "Who is she?" one asked. "Didn't she used to work here? Caldwell's old assistant?" Another replied, "And the kids, are they hers?" Ethan heard every word, each whisper cut like a knife. He knew Amara's arrival wasn't merely personal. It could become gossip, maybe a scandal if the truth got out. Yet, at this moment, he cared nothing for reputation or stocks. He needed to understand why Amara was here, and why she had brought 3 children with eyes identical to his own. Sensing the turmoil she had sparked, Amara straightened her spine, smoothing her gown. She guided the children deeper into the ballroom, unfazed by curious stares. She hadn't come to apologize or to create havoc. She came because Zuri wanted to show off her princess dress. After all, Malik saw the gala as an adventure, because Aisha wished to meet the man in her mother's photo. Above all, she came to remind Ethan of the family he had forfeited, one she had built despite his absence. As she passed within a few meters of Ethan, she didn't stop, but her gaze skimmed over him, sharp, significant. In that instant, Ethan knew the night would change everything. Though filled with piano music and clinking wine glasses, the air in Apex Innovation's grand banquet hall suddenly felt suffocating to Ethan Caldwell. The white American CEO, pristine in his black tuxedo, felt the crowd's gaze prickling his skin like needles. The arrival of Amara Johnson, a black woman radiant in a crimson gown, alongside 3 children, Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, had stunned the entire room. Standing only meters away, Ethan couldn't take his eyes off her, or them. The bright blue eyes of the 3 children, so much like his own, were a living accusation. He wanted to approach, to say something, but the curious stares and murmurs of investors made his courage falter. Amara, in contrast, maintained an air of calm. She guided Zuri, Malik, and Aisha toward a small refreshment table adorned with juice and sweets. She bent down, smiling at Malik as he pointed to a macaron. "Just one, okay?" she said, gentle but firm. Zuri, ever sensitive, held tightly to her mother's hand, her eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for something. Dreamy and quiet, Aisha stood close, her tiny hand clutching the hem of Amara's red gown. Kiara, Amara's best friend and an Apex employee, remained nearby, chatting warmly with the children to lighten the mood. But Amara could feel Ethan's gaze. She knew it was only a matter of time before the inevitable confrontation. Momentarily trapped in small talk with an investor, Ethan gave distracted answers, his mind completely consumed by Amara. Liam Carter, who had suggested inviting her as a joke, noticed Ethan's unease and approached with a champagne glass. "You okay?" Liam asked, half joking. "She came, with a whole squad of little ones. Do you know anything about them?" Ethan gripped his glass tighter, forcing his voice steady. No idea," he replied. But the lie dried his throat like ash. He knew, or at the very least, suspected. Those children, with eyes like his, couldn't be a coincidence. At last, unable to withstand the pressure, Ethan stepped toward Amara. The crowd seemed to part, forming an invisible corridor. Amara, helping Aisha with her juice cup, looked up as Ethan neared. "Amara," he said, his voice hoarse, as if the name weighed heavily on his lips. She met his eyes, deep, unwavering brown, but a flicker of fatigue passed through them. "Ethan," she replied, calm but sharp. Zuri, Malik, and Aisha looked up, curious yet cautious. Ethan's heart pounded. He wanted to say something real, to ask about the children, but the weight of onlookers, executives, reporters, whispers, formed an invisible cage around him. In a panic, he blurted, "Welcome. And these must be your best friend's kids, right?" He gestured to the children, his voice trembling. "Emma, Noah, and Lily?" He made up the names, desperate to mask the truth he wasn't ready to face. The air around them froze. Amara inhaled slowly. Her eyes darkened, not from anger, but from deep disappointment. Zuri, the most intuitive, stepped closer to her mother and whispered, "I'm not Emma." Her voice was small but clear, slicing into Ethan like a blade. Malik frowned, sensing the tension, and looked at Ethan with suspicion. Aisha clung tighter to Amara's dress, as if instinctively shielding herself. Kiara, nearby, shook her head, her eyes full of reproach. "Ethan?" she muttered loud enough for him to hear. Amara said nothing, but her silence was heavier than any rebuke. She bent down, smoothing Zuri's hair, forcing a smile to reassure the kids. "Let's get more juice, sweethearts," she said gently but firmly. She led them away, leaving Ethan rooted to the spot, feeling as though he had shot himself in the foot. The murmurs in the room grew louder. "Who are they?" one executive asked. A reporter whispered, scribbling into a notebook that didn't look like just a friend's kids. Ethan felt their eyes like arrows, but Zuri's gaze was the sharpest wound, the look of a child who had just been denied. Amara, guiding the children to a quieter corner, struggled to control her emotions. She hadn't come to the gala to confront or to provoke, but Ethan's clumsy lie had torn open an old wound. She remembered standing in Apex's lobby 3 years ago, telling him about her pregnancy, hoping he would step forward. Instead, he chose silence, and now he had chosen lies. "Mom, who was that?" Malik asked, his voice curious but laced with unease. Amara smiled, though her heart felt heavy. "Just someone Mommy used to work with, sweetheart," she replied, unwilling to burden the children with pain. Aisha looked up, asking softly, "Does he not like us?" Amara knelt and pulled Aisha into her arms. "No, honey, it's not that. Mommy loves you, and that's what matters most." Watching from across the room, Ethan felt the floor beneath him crack. He knew he'd made an unforgivable mistake. That awkward, cowardly lie hadn't just hurt Amara. It had hurt the children, his children, if they were, in fact, his. Liam returned, more serious this time. "You just made everything worse, man," he said quietly, his usual levity gone. Ethan didn't answer. He could only watch Amara, still smiling at the children. But he knew behind that smile was a wound he had just made deeper. The gala continued, music playing, glasses clinking. But the night had become a silent courtroom for Ethan, and he had just taken the defendant's seat. By the tall windows of the Apex Innovations ballroom, the city lights of Manhattan twinkled like scattered stars. But inside, the air felt heavy, like the calm before the storm. Amara Johnson, resplendent in her deep red gown, stood quietly, one hand gently clasping Aisha's, while the other smoothed Zuri's curls in comfort. Standing beside them, Malik scanned the room with curiosity tinged by unease, still reeling from Ethan Caldwell's clumsy lie. The man who had just called him and his sisters a friend's kids, inventing names: Emma, Noah, Lily. Though the room had returned to its soft piano melodies and sparkling conversation, eyes still darted discreetly toward Amara and her children, whispers trailing in their wake. Not far away, Ethan felt trapped in an invisible cage, unable to look away from Amara and the children, each one bearing the same piercing blue eyes as his own. Ethan, the powerful white CEO in a tailored black tuxedo, knew he had made an unforgivable mistake. Though instinctual in a moment of panic, his lie had cut deeply, especially into Zuri, the most sensitive, who now looked at him with confused suspicion. He wanted to fix it, to walk over and speak truthfully, but the crowd's pressure, executives, investors, reporters, formed a wall between him and the family he might have denied. Liam Carter, Apex's marketing director, and the one who jokingly suggested inviting Amara, stood beside Ethan and shrugged. "You just dug your grave, man," he muttered, his tone no longer playful. Ethan didn't respond. He could only watch Amara, who now knelt to speak softly to Malik, her smile tender, though he could sense the pain buried beneath it, the pain he had just made worse. Feeling Ethan's stare, Amara decided she could no longer let the moment slip by in silence. She turned to Zuri, Malik, and Aisha. She said, Let's go somewhere quieter," guiding Gulitsum toward a more private corner near the window, where the light was softer and the piano less overwhelming. Kiara, sensing what was piano-less happening, started to follow. But Amara stopped her with a whisper. "I need to do this alone." Kiara nodded, her eyes full of worry but trust. Amara turned, met Ethan's gaze, and, with a subtle nod, signaled him to come. He hesitated, then moved, each step unbearably heavy, conscious of the eyes that followed. "Amara," Ethan began, his voice rough. I didn't mean—" But Amara raised a hand, cutting him off, Her deep brown eyes locked onto his, not angry, but tired, as if she had carried this weight far too long. "You looked at your children and called them by fake names, Ethan," she said, her voice quiet but razor-sharp. "You called Zuri Emma, Malik Noah, and Aisha Lily. You denied them. In front of me. In front of them." Hearing her name, Zuri gripped Amara's hand tighter, her eyes brushing past Ethan's, torn between curiosity and hurt. Malik furrowed his brow, still watching Ethan with caution. Aisha pressed into Amara's side, her small hand clutching the hem of her mother's dress. Ethan opened his mouth, but the words tangled in his throat. "I panicked," he finally said, voice trembling. "I wasn't ready. Not for this." Amara inhaled deeply, keeping herself steady for the sake of her children. "You've had 4 years, Ethan," she replied, calm, but with force. 4 years to know that Zuri's afraid of the dark and only sleeps with a star-shaped nightlight. 4 years to learn that Malik fixes everything, from toys to broken chairs, and believes he's a superhero. 4 years later, I discovered that Aisha sings when she's sad and always asks me about the man in the photo on the bookshelf. Each word landed like a hammer against Ethan's chest. She stepped closer, lowering her voice without losing its steel. "I didn't come here to cause trouble or ask you for anything. I came because Zuri wanted to show off her princess dress. Malik thought a gala would be an adventure, and Aisha wanted to meet the man in Mommy's picture. But you, Ethan, chose to lie instead of facing us." Ethan lowered his head, unable to meet her gaze. "I was wrong," he whispered, almost inaudible. "I don't know what to do." Amara looked at him, her eyes briefly softening with something like pity before clarity returned. "You don't have to know everything right now," she said, "but you do have to choose. Face the truth, or keep running from it. I'm not forcing you, but my children deserve better than lies." She turned to the kids with a gentle smile. "Come on, babies. Let's listen to the music." Zuri nodded, though her eyes lingered on Ethan as if questioning him. Malik, still wary, followed. Aisha took her mother's hand and asked in a whisper, "Mommy, is he coming back?" Ethan stood frozen as Amara led them away. Her words echoed in his mind. My children deserve better than lies. He knew she was right. 3 years ago, when Amara told him she was pregnant, he had chosen silence, believing money and distance could erase consequences. But now, looking at Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, he saw everything he had missed. Not just Amara, but a family. The crowd around him resumed their polite chatter, but the whispers persisted. "Are those Caldwell's kids?" one executive murmured. "This is going to hit the press," a reporter noted, scribbling. Ethan didn't care. For the first time, his status, power, and legacy felt meaningless compared to the wounded look in Zuri's eyes. From across the room, Kiara watched Amara with admiration. She said quietly that "you're stronger than all of them combined" as Amara returned. Amara gave her a faint smile. "I want to protect my kids, But in her heart, she knew. The confrontation wasn't over. Though standing in the center of the crowd, Ethan had never felt lonelier. And if he wanted redemption, he would have to do more than apologize. He would have to confront the truth with Amara, and within himself. The Apex Innovations ballroom still shimmered under the glow of its crystal chandeliers, but the atmosphere had shifted since the tense confrontation between Amara Johnson and Ethan Caldwell. Amara, radiant in her deep red gown, stood by a small refreshment table, helping Malik choose a macaron. At the same time, Zuri and Aisha sat on velvet chairs, chatting excitedly about the band playing nearby. The black American woman, graceful and composed, masked the sting left by Ethan's lie, the man who had introduced her children as a friend's kids and called them fake names. Ethan, the white American CEO in a crisp black tuxedo, stood not far off, his blue eyes filled with regret, never leaving Amara and the three children, Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, each bearing eyes just like his own. Though laughter and small talk had resumed among the crowd, subtle glances continued to flick toward them, the tension beneath the glittering surface far from forgotten. Ethan felt like he was trapped in a nightmare of his own making. His thoughtless lie had wounded Amara and made Zuri, the most sensitive of the three, look at him suspiciously. "My children deserve better than lies." Her words echoed in his mind, sharp and unrelenting. He knew that he might lose his chance if he didn't act now. But how could he make amends under the scrutiny of hundreds of guests, executives, investors, journalists, ready to turn his missteps into headlines? He tightened his grip on the wine glass, took a deep breath, and walked forward. Amara, gently stroking Aisha's hair, looked up as Ethan approached. She braced for another conversation, but Zuri's clear, bright voice interrupted before she could speak. "Mommy, I want to dance," Zuri exclaimed, pointing toward the dance floor where a few couples glided to the soft piano melody. Amara smiled despite her heavy heart. "Okay, sweetheart, I'll take you." But Zuri shook her head and looked at Ethan, curious and shy. "I want to dance with him," she said, pointing directly at him. Both Amara and Ethan froze. Malik furrowed his brow, and Aisha giggled as if it were a game. Caught off guard, Ethan's heart thudded in his chest. He knelt to Zuri's eye level. "May I have this dance, Zuri?" he asked softly, using her real name, trying to mend what had been broken. Zuri looked to her mother for permission. Amara, though cautious, saw the sincerity in Ethan's expression. She knew her children, especially Zuri, needed moments of joy to help ease the strain. She nodded, her voice calm but firm. "Just one dance." Zuri beamed and grabbed Ethan's hand, pulling him eagerly toward the dance floor. Under the soft lighting, Ethan awkwardly led Zuri in a slow, hesitant waltz. His hands trembled as he tried not to trip her. In her cream-colored princess dress, Zuri spun and laughed every time he lifted her slightly. "You dance terribly," she said with innocent glee. Ethan laughed, genuinely, for the first time that evening. "I'll learn, I promise," he replied, gazing at her with awe. From across the room, Amara watched her heart, a knot of pain and cautious hope. She wanted to believe Ethan could change, but his lie echoed like a scar that hadn't healed. Malik ran onto the dance floor, not wanting to be left out, pulling Aisha with him. "I want to dance too," he declared proudly, puffing out his chest in his tiny tuxedo. Ethan laughed aloud and welcomed them both with open arms. He clumsily guided Malik and Aisha through a makeshift routine, drawing giggles from all three children. Malik mimicked Ethan's steps while Aisha twirled, her pale pink silk dress fluttering like petals. The guests, once curious and skeptical, began to smile. A few even clapped politely. Kiara, standing beside Amara, whispered, "Look at them. The kids. They make everything seem so easy." Amara nodded, her eyes still locked on Ethan. She saw something genuine in how he danced with the children, but couldn't help but wonder, was this real? Or just a performance? The moment was soon interrupted when an executive, Mrs. Eleanor, approached Amara. "Ms. Johnson," she asked politely, though her tone was laced with curiosity. "I remember you from 3 years ago. Are these your children?" Amara smiled, keeping her composure. "Yes, this is Zuri, Malik, and Aisha. They are my pride and joy." Mrs. Eleanor nodded, her eyes drifting toward Ethan. She said, "They look very much like someone we both know," voice heavy with implication. Amara offered no reply, just a faint, knowing smile. But she knew whispers about the children's paternity would soon ripple through the room. Sensing the growing attention, Ethan gently brought the children back to Amara. "Thank you, Zuri," he said, kneeling again before her. "You're an excellent dancer." Zuri grinned but then asked, her voice small but clear, "Why did you call me Emma?" "I'm Zuri." The question cut like a knife. Ethan was speechless. Amara stood behind him, watching, waiting. I made a mistake, Zuri," Ethan finally said, voice hoarse. "I'm sorry. I won't forget your name again." Zuri nodded, but her eyes still held traces of doubt. Amara took the children's hands, leading them to the refreshment table. She turned briefly, looking Ethan in the eye. "They don't need an apology, Ethan," she said, her voice quiet but sharp. "They need the truth." Ethan stood there, watching Amara and the children walk away. He felt he'd been given a chance, and warned simultaneously. The whispers resumed. "Are they his kids?" one executive murmured. "This is going to make headlines," a reporter scribbled. But Ethan no longer cared. For the first time, the weight of his reputation meant nothing compared to Zuri's wounded gaze. He knew that to earn their trust, Amara's and the children's, he had to do more than dance. He had to face himself. And finally, he tells the truth he has run from for 4 long years. The crystal chandeliers of the Apex Innovations ballroom still glittered above, but the atmosphere had shifted, now filled with quiet tension, curiosity, and expectation. Amara Johnson, her deep crimson gown glowing against her radiant brown skin, stood near a small table, watching Zuri, Malik, and Aisha play with colorful macarons. The Black American woman, composed and resilient, was still quietly nursing the wound left by Ethan Caldwell's lie. The man who had introduced her 3 children as a friend's kids with fake names. Ethan, the white American man in a flawless black tuxedo, lingered at the edge of the room, his piercing blue eyes locked on Amara and the children. Zuri, Malik, Aisha, all bearing eyes identical to his. That brief dance with them had offered a flicker of warmth, but Zuri's innocent question, "Why did you call me Emma?" still rang in his ears like a blade to the chest. All around, the murmurs continued. The whispers about the children's identities were spreading from CEOs to journalists. Ethan knew that if he didn't act now, he would lose this chance to make things right, possibly forever. Amara's quiet warning, "They need the truth," echoed louder than any boardroom critique. He glanced across the ballroom and spotted Kiara smiling at the children and Liam Carter watching him closely, the man who had sparked this with a joke. Ethan understood that this was no longer about damage control. This was about facing the truth, not for the press, not for the public, but for Amara, the children, and himself. Breaking from the script of the gala, Ethan stepped up to the stage near the piano, where a musician was softly playing. He tapped the microphone gently. The room fell into silence. All eyes turned to him. Amara looked up from beside the children, her deep brown eyes filled with wary disbelief. Zuri, Malik, and Aisha stopped playing, looking at their mother, then toward Ethan, curious, cautious. Ethan took a deep breath, his voice shaky but firm. He began, "But I wasn't supposed to say anything tonight except give a speech about quarterly profits. But there are moments in life when pretending is no longer an option. This is one of those moments." The crowd hushed, sensing the weight in his tone. Ethan looked straight at Amara, unflinching. "I invited someone to this gala as a joke," he admitted. "Amara Johnson, my former assistant. Someone who meant more to me than I ever said. I didn't expect her to come. I didn't expect her to bring 3 angels, Zuri, Malik, and Aisha." A quiet gasp rippled through the room. Amara stood tall, gripping Aisha's hand. Her expression didn't change, but her heart beat faster. Ethan's voice cracked with emotion. 3 years ago, Amara told me she was pregnant with triplets. I panicked. I could fix everything with money, with distance. I was wrong. I let her walk away, alone, with 3 children I didn't dare to acknowledge. He glanced down at the kids near their mother. And tonight, I was wrong again. I was afraid to call my children, Zuri, Malik, Aisha, by other names. Fearful of being exposed, scared of the truth. But I can't run anymore. The room was breathless. Some executives covered their mouths. One journalist scribbled furiously in her notebook. But Ethan didn't care. He stepped off the stage and walked toward Amara and the children, his movements deliberate. Then he knelt before them, eye level with Zuri, Malik, and Aisha. Zuri, Malik, Aisha, he said gently, voice thick with regret. I'm sorry for calling you names that aren't yours. You are my children, and I was wrong not to be there from the start. Zuri studied him, suspicion in her eyes slowly replaced by curiosity. Malik tilted his head, weighing the moment, while Aisha clung to Amara, smiling shyly. Behind them, Amara felt her throat tighten. She hadn't expected this. Not here. Not now. The apology didn't erase 4 years of pain, but it pierced through the armor she'd worn for so long. Her voice, low but steady, cut through the silence. Apologies don't change the past, Ethan, she said, but they can open the door to a future. If you're serious about it. Ethan nodded, eyes never leaving hers. I don't expect forgiveness right away, Amara. I know I don't deserve it, but I want to try, because of them, and because of you. Amara didn't speak immediately. She looked at her children. Zuri was smiling faintly. Malik shrugged as if deciding to give Ethan a chance. Aisha whispered, Is he telling the truth, Mommy? Sensing the sincerity, the crowd began to applaud. Not loudly, not performatively, but gently, respectfully. Kiara, standing close, wiped a tear and whispered to Amara, Do you see that? He's trying. Amara gave a slow nod, her eyes cautious. Trying isn't enough, she said. He has to prove it. Ethan, overhearing, nodded solemnly. I will, he promised. I will prove it. As the music resumed, Ethan turned back to the children. Would you like more macarons? He asked, gently breaking the tension. Malik nodded excitedly. Zuri giggled. Aisha took his hand and led him to the dessert table. Amara stood still, watching Ethan interact with the children. Her emotions churned, hope, doubt, and something else she hadn't let herself feel in a long time. The possibility of healing. His public apology was significant, but she knew rebuilding trust wouldn't come from a single speech. It would require consistency, presence, and time. The gala continued, but for Amara, this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, not of forgiveness, but of possibility. A chance for Ethan to become the father her children deserved. The glow of crystal chandeliers in the Apex Innovations ballroom began to soften as the gala entered its final hour, but tension still lingered beneath the glittering elegance. Amara Johnson, radiant in her deep crimson gown, stood near her children, Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, who laughed and played beside Kiara at the dessert table. The Black American woman, composed and proud, was still processing the weight of Ethan Caldwell's public apology. The white American CEO, who had just admitted before hundreds of guests that Zuri, Malik, and Aisha were his children. The revelation stunned the room, and while Ethan's apology had been sincere, It couldn't erase 4 years of absence. Amara, still guarded, waited not for more words, but for real action. Standing near the bar, Ethan felt the room's gaze like daggers in his back, curious, judgmental, and relentless. Though his speech had been met with applause, it had unleashed a wave of social shock he hadn't fully anticipated. A group of executives, led by the senior board member Mr. Harrison, pulled him into a corner. "What the hell did you do, Ethan?" Mr. Harrison asked, voice low but sharp. "Exposing your private life in front of the press? Apex's stock could take a nosedive if this turns into a scandal." Ethan, still heavy with regret but standing firm, replied calmly, "I told the truth, sir. If that hurts Apex, I'll take responsibility." Mr. Harrison narrowed his eyes. "The board will convene tomorrow morning. You'd better be ready." Across the room, Amara noticed the tension in Ethan's conversation. She turned to Kiara, who was helping Aisha pick out another macaron. "Do you see the press?" Amara whispered, glancing at a photographer snapping pictures from a shadowed corner. Kiara nodded, concerned. "They're going to write something. But are you okay?" After what Ethan said, Amara offered a soft smile. "I'm fine, but I worry about the kids. They didn't come here to be dragged into gossip." She looked at Zuri, now animatedly telling Malik and Aisha a story about a dancing dragon. Her heart clenched. She had brought them here for a joyful evening, not to become headlines. Zuri, ever perceptive, noticed her mother's worry. She ran over and tugged Amara's hand. "Mommy, why are you sad?" she asked, her voice bright and clear. Amara knelt, brushing a curl from Zuri's face. "I'm not sad, baby. I want you all to be happy." Malik, overhearing, piped up. "That man, is he our dad? Is he gonna stay with us?" The question froze Amara. She looked at her children, their eyes filled with innocent hope. She couldn't lie. "He's trying, Malik," she said gently. "But Mommy needs to be sure he'll be good to you." Aisha, clutching her hand, whispered, "If he's good, can he read me a bedtime story?" Amara smiled softly, pulling them all into a hug. "If he's good, I'll let him try." Meanwhile, Ethan had just walked away from his tense exchange with Mr. Harrison when a reporter from the Financial Times approached. "Mr. Caldwell, are Ms. Johnson and the children your secret family? How will Apex respond to this revelation?" Tired but resolute, Ethan replied, "They're my family, and I'm going to do right by them. As for Apex, we'll weather this." He turned away, unwilling to feed the story further. His eyes searched the room and found Amara with the children and Kiara, all laughing again, as if nothing else mattered. A wave of warmth rose in his chest, tinged with guilt. He understood that reclaiming Amara's trust meant facing not only her, but the entire world. Sensing Ethan's approach, Amara led the children toward a quieter corner near the balcony. She wanted to shield them from prying eyes. "Mom, do we have to leave yet?" Zuri asked, a hint of disappointment in her voice. "Not yet," Amara replied, smiling. "But I want you to know something. No matter what happens, Mommy loves you more than anything." Malik puffed out his chest. "We love you too, Mommy." Aisha chimed in, hugging her. The moment was simple, but it gave Amara more strength than any applause ever could. Ethan couldn't stay silent. He stepped forward. "Amara," he said softly, "I know an apology isn't enough, but I want them to know I'm not running anymore." Amara looked at him, her eyes still wary. "Ethan, they don't need a hero. They need consistency. They need you present." Ethan nodded, then met the eyes of each child. "I understand, and I'll try, one day at a time." Zuri tilted her head. "Will you come to our house?" she asked. Ethan smiled gently, kneeling. If your mommy says yes, then I'll be there, Zuri. Amara didn't answer, but she didn't say no. She took her children's hands and guided them back toward the ballroom, leaving Ethan with a flicker of hope in his chest. Amara and the children climbed into a sleek black sedan when the gala finally ended. The city lights glimmered outside as they pulled away. Malik leaned forward from the back seat. Mom, is Dad a good person? Amara looked at her children, smiled, and answered honestly. I don't know yet, sweetheart, but we're going to find out, together. Behind them, Ethan stood alone on the steps of Apex HQ, watching the car disappear into the night. He knew the board's pressure, media fallout, and rumors. They were beginning. But for the first time, he was ready. Not for reputation, not for headlines. For Zuri, for Malik, for Aisha, and for the woman he had let go once, but would do anything to fight for now. 2 weeks after the Apex Innovations Gala, the air in Brooklyn had softened, but an undercurrent of tension still lingered. Amara Johnson sat on the sofa in her cozy apartment, watching Zuri, Malik, and Aisha playing on the rug with their Lego bricks. The black American woman's curly hair, tied up high, and her deep eyes reflective, still weighed Ethan Caldwell's public apology. His admission that Zuri, Malik, and Aisha were his children had shaken the gala to its core. But Amara knew words were only the beginning. She needed Ethan to prove he could become the father her children deserved. Meanwhile, pressure from the media and the Apex board still loomed heavily over Ethan. But for the first time, he had made a clear choice. Family came first. Ethan, the white American man with blonde hair and clear blue eyes, had started appearing in Amara's and the children's lives. Every day after the gala, he called to check in and brought storybooks for Aisha, toy repair kits for Malik, and a star-shaped nightlight for Zuri. He came to the apartment in the evenings, no longer in a power tuxedo, but in simple shirts, ready to sit on the floor and play with his kids. Amara, still guarded, couldn't deny the sincerity behind his actions. But she was afraid, not of Ethan failing, but of letting him in and being hurt again. On Wednesday evening, Ethan arrived with a picture book about the universe, a gift for Aisha, who loved stories about the stars. I love this one, Aisha beamed, hugging the book and pulling Ethan onto the sofa. Zuri, busy drawing a dragon, looked at Ethan less suspiciously than before. Malik, holding a broken toy car, hesitated. Dad, can you fix this? He asked, his voice uncertain as he tried calling him Dad for the first time. Ethan moved, knelt, and took the car in his hands. Let me try, Malik, he said, voice trembling. He used a small screwdriver to adjust the wheel, and Malik's eyes lit up as it started to spin again. From the kitchen doorway, Amara watched with complex emotions. She remembered the nights she comforted Zuri alone when the girl was scared of the dark, the times Malik tried to fix toys with tape, and the evenings Aisha sang herself to sleep. She had done it all by herself, with help from her mother and Kiara. But now, Ethan was here, trying to become part of that world. When Ethan read the book aloud to Aisha, his voice was clumsy but warm. Amara felt a flicker of hope, but quickly pressed it down. Don't rush, Amara, she told herself. After the kids had gone to bed, Amara and Ethan sat at the kitchen table, each with a cup of tea. Thank you for coming, Amara said, her voice soft but cautious. Ethan nodded, his eyes sincere. I want to be here, Amara. Not just tonight, but every day. She searched his face, looking for traces of the man who had once left her behind. The kids are starting to trust you, she said. But if you disappoint them, Ethan, I won't forgive it. Ethan bowed his head. I know. I won't let them down. Suddenly, Malik appeared in the doorway, sleepy-eyed. Dad, he said, voice small but clear. Why weren't you with us before? The question cut through the room like a knife. Ethan knelt, eye level with Malik. I made a mistake, Malik, he said, voice breaking. I was scared, and I didn't know how to be a dad. But now, I want to learn, if you'll let me. Malik tilted his head, thinking, then nodded. Okay, but you have to fix the car better next time. Ethan chuckled, wiping a tear. Deal. Watching that moment, Amara felt something in her chest soften, but she stayed guarded. After Malik returned to bed, she turned to Ethan. I talked to Kiara today, she said. I'm scared, Ethan. Frightened, you'll return to that other life, with boardrooms and headlines. The kids need you here, in the small moments, not on a stage. Ethan nodded, gently taking her hand, but she pulled back. I'm not ready, she said, but I see you're trying. And that's a start. Outside, the media still buzzed with rumors about Ethan's family scandal. One Business Insider article called him the CEO with a shocking family secret, and the Apex board continued to pressure him to attend emergency meetings. But for the first time, Ethan declined. He emailed Mr. Harrison a firm message. I'll handle Apex later. Right now, my family matters more. When Kiara told Amara what he'd done, she was surprised. He skipped a board meeting. For the kids, Kiara said, eyes wide. Amara smiled faintly but said, let's see how long he keeps that up. As Ethan left the apartment that night, he paused outside the door, looking out over the Brooklyn skyline. He knew this journey into fatherhood was beginning, and each small step, from fixing a toy car to reading a bedtime story, was a trial. Inside, Amara watched him from the window, feeling that cautious spark again. Only time would tell if it would last. In her dreams, Zuri smiled, as if she already believed their family was beginning to heal. Light rain danced across the streets of Brooklyn, forming shimmering puddles beneath the glow of streetlights. Inside Amara Johnson's modest apartment, the warm light from a desk lamp illuminated children's drawings taped to the walls, colorful houses and 5 stick figures holding hands. Amara, the Black American woman with curly hair tied up high, sat on the couch holding a cup of tea, her eyes gently following Zuri, Malik, and Aisha as they played with Ethan Caldwell. Ethan, the white American man with blonde hair and blue eyes, had become familiar in their lives in the 2 weeks since the Apex Innovations Gala. No longer a powerful CEO in a tuxedo, he now wore a simple blue shirt and knelt beside Malik, helping him build a toy train. And yet, while Amara recognized the sincerity in Ethan's actions, she still guarded her heart behind layers of caution. That day, Ethan arrived with a surprise, a picnic basket he had planned all week. I want to take everyone to the park, he said, his voice excited but slightly nervous. Just one afternoon, nothing fancy, just us. The children lit up instantly. Is there a carousel? Zuri squealed. Can we run around? Malik chimed in. Can I draw stars? Aisha asked dreamily. Watching their excitement, Amara nodded despite the worry tugging at her chest. All right, she said. But if it rains, we come home early. Ethan grinned, his eyes glowing. I brought a giant umbrella. We're covered. Near the Hudson River, the park was a tranquil green space with old oak trees and a worn wooden playground. The rain stopped, leaving crisp air and dewdrops glittering on the grass. Ethan laid out a large blanket and opened the basket. Sandwiches, sliced fruit, and a chocolate coconut cake. The dessert Amar had once mentioned on a late-night work shift 4 years ago. You remembered this? She said, surprised. Ethan smiled, his cheeks tinged pink. chocolate and coconut. You said it reminded you of a peaceful evening in Paris. I wrote it down. Amara chuckled softly, a rare, unguarded smile that warmed Ethan's heart. The kids were uninterested in adult nostalgia. Zuri climbed the slide. Malik chased a duck near the pond. Aisha swayed gently on a swing, humming to herself. Ethan and Amara sat on the blanket, watching them, the air between them quiet, but filled with unspoken tension. "They're amazing," Ethan said, watching Malik try to catch a butterfly. "They're everything to me," Amara replied. "But Ethan, they're yours too, and that terrifies me." Ethan turned to her, his expression serious. "You're afraid I'll fail?" Amara inhaled deeply. "I'm afraid you'll return to your old life. The meetings, the lights. I'm so scared they'll love you, and then you'll disappear." Ethan said nothing for a moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal a delicate gold necklace engraved with 3 names: Zuri, Malik, and Aisha. He said I had one made for myself too, pulling out a matching chain from beneath his shirt. "I want to carry them with me, Amara. Not just today, every day." Amara touched the necklace, her eyes misting. "This isn't a promise, is it?" she asked, her voice trembling. Ethan shook his head. "It's not a promise. It's a commitment. I want to be here, for the kids, and if you'll let me, for you." Just then, Zuri came running over, her cheeks pink from play. "Mom, Dad, look, I caught a butterfly," she cried, proudly holding a leaf like a treasure. Malik and Aisha followed behind, laughing. But suddenly, Aisha tripped on the gravel path and scraped her knee. Amara started to rise, but Ethan was faster. He rushed to Aisha, scooping her up gently. "It's okay, princess," he said, cleaning the scrape with a cloth from the basket. "Even the best adventurers fall sometimes." Aisha, still hurting, giggled at his funny face. Amara, watching the scene unfold, felt her defenses begin to crumble. He wasn't just trying, he was showing up. Beneath the oak tree, Ethan and Amara sat closer while the kids returned to play. Rain began to fall softly again. Ethan opened the umbrella, shielding them both. "Amara," he said, voice low, "I don't want you to do this alone anymore. Not because you need saving, but because you deserve a partner." Amara looked at him, still cautious, but no longer closed. "I don't want to do it alone anymore either," she admitted. "But I need you to be you, not perfect, just real." Ethan nodded and gently took her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. They sat in the rain, not in some grand promise of forever, but in something more honest, a hopeful beginning. Back at the apartment, the children were sleepy but content, clutching balloons Ethan had bought from a street vendor. Amara watched as he helped Malik take off his shoes. "Thank you for today," she said softly. Ethan smiled. "Thank you for giving me a chance." As he stepped into the rainy night, Amara stood at the door, watching. She knew the road ahead would be long, but for the first time, she believed Ethan might walk it beside her. 3 months after the Apex Innovations Gala, the small Brooklyn apartment of Amara Johnson was filled with soft light as the early winter sun slipped through the curtains. Amara, the Black American woman with loosely tied curls, stood in the kitchen stirring a fragrant pot of tomato soup. From the living room came the laughter of Zuri, Malik, and Aisha, where Ethan Caldwell, the white American man with blonde hair and a warm smile, sat cross-legged on the rug, helping the children build a giant Lego castle. Ethan was no longer the distant CEO. He was a father, learning to belong in the world of his children. Watching him, Amara felt her heart grow lighter. though she knew that building a new family came with its own set of trials. Ethan had become an indispensable part of their lives in the past 3 months. He came over every Tuesday and Saturday evening, reading storybooks to Aisha, helping Malik build model trains, and learning, clumsily, how to braid Zuri's hair with tiny barrettes. He brought home-cooked meals, sometimes slightly burnt, and joined Amara and the kids for walks in the park, museum visits, or simply wandering beneath Brooklyn's leafy canopy. Amara, once guarded, gradually began to open her heart, not because Ethan was perfect, but because he was consistent, something she once believed he could never be. On this chilly Saturday afternoon, Ethan had brought a surprise, a painting from the kids' preschool. Zuri, Malik, and Aisha had drawn a 5-person family, mom, dad, and 3 children, standing beneath a blue sky filled with twinkling stars. The teacher said it was the best picture in class, Ethan said proudly, holding it up. Zuri pointed to each figure excitedly. "This is Mommy. That's Daddy. Me, Malik, and Aisha." Malik chimed in. "I made Daddy the tallest." And Aisha added dreamily, "I drew stars, because Daddy said I'm his little star." Amara looked at the drawing, her eyes misting. She hung it beside the other artwork on the wall, knowing this imperfect, evolving family was slowly becoming real. However, the moment Ethan received a call from Apex was tested. After 3 months of mounting media pressure over the family scandal, the board demanded he attend an emergency meeting in London. In mid-play with Malik, Ethan excused himself to take the call on the balcony. Amara overheard pieces of the conversation and felt an old dread rise within her. She remembered the days Ethan disappeared from his work, leaving promises never fulfilled. When he returned, she asked directly, "You're going, aren't you?" Ethan shook his head. "No. I told them I'd work remotely. The kids come before any meeting now." Amara studied him, uncertainty in her eyes, yet relief washed over her. "Are you sure?" He took her hand, and she didn't pull away this time. "I've never been more sure." After dinner, with the children fast asleep, Amara and Ethan sat on the couch, each holding a glass of wine. "I used to believe you'd never change," Amara said, her voice low but sincere. "But you're proving me wrong, Ethan. The kids love you." Ethan smiled, though his eyes were serious. "What about you, Amara? Do you think you could love me again?" The question caught her off guard. Memories of late-night shifts, quiet intimacy, and the pain of his abandonment flashed through her mind. "I'm not ready to say I love you," she replied, "but I'm prepared to build one day at a time." Ethan nodded, his expression softening. "That's enough." That night, as Ethan stepped onto the quiet Brooklyn street, Amara stood by the doorway watching him go. She touched the necklace around her neck, the one engraved with Zuri, Malik, and Aisha's names, a gift from their riverside picnic months ago, and smiled. She knew love wasn't a destination, but a journey. Ethan chose to walk that journey beside her. In the children's bedroom, Zuri mumbled in her sleep, "Daddy will read again." Malik, fast asleep, clutched the model train Ethan had helped him build. Aisha, with her book of stars tucked under her pillow, smiled. The next morning, Amara received a letter from the preschool announcing that the family painting had won first place in an art contest. She called Ethan, and he showed up almost instantly, holding a box of donuts to celebrate. As they sat around the kitchen table, Zuri asked, "Daddy, will you stay with us forever?" Ethan looked at Amara, then turned to Zuri, his voice steady. "I'll stay, Zuri, as long as you and Mommy want me to." For the first time, Amara smiled without hesitation. "We will make this work," she said. And Ethan, holding her hand, felt the warmth of a new kind of family, built not on perfection, but on love, choice, and the courage to begin again.